Warning, censorship.
A man died and nobody's in trouble. When I walked in the building, the guards inside, they were not wearing masks. So why was my brother forced to wear a mask, and why did he take a beating for it?
It wasn't over a mask, it wasn't. Something else took place before that.
On August 23rd, a 50-year-old father of two, Daniel Winston Robinson, was taken to Edmonton Remand Centre, Canada's largest prison, over an unpaid insurance fine from 2019.
I don't care who you are, what you did to get in there. You don't deserve to be dead.
The mother says that when she phoned the isolation unit, she was told that when the guards came to his cell to set him free, Robinson refused to wear a mask, and it took 4 men to restrain him.
And then all it's like they could just show us the footage. Just show it to us. Why are you hiding it?
It just does not add up. He would not refuse to wear a mask to work, to walk outside.
Edmonton police launched a criminal investigation, but after the autopsy report came out, deemed the investigation non-criminal.
How do you go up against the system? They kill your brother, they have all the evidence, stacks of paperwork for you to do, and tell you to sit there and wait.
Maybe his death wasn't criminal intent, but the beating was. I got this vision of my son laying face down on the floor, being beaten, like kicked in the head. And now he's gone.
How does the guy just die?
August 23rd, Danny first called me telling me about his plans, how they were going to go. And the second last phone call, he just made his last DoorDash delivery, or was going to, one or the other. And he was going to go home and then get ready to get to this job in Grand Prairie starting Wednesday. And then the next phone call was, from my memory, like Danny phoned me about 9 o'clock, Ontario. And he was phoning from the back of a police car. And he told me that he was pulled over for his brake lights being out. He was telling me he has to get this $2,800 fine paid, or he'd have to stay in jail for up to 45 days till whatever, till it was paid. And then he had to then turn off the phone. But he was still able to message me, and he took pictures of the car entering, like to where the big door is. And then about a couple of hours later, he phoned me from the remand because he had that free one day call, like free call every day. And the main topic of conversation was getting the fine paid so he could get to this job. This job in Grand Prairie was going to pay for his way to get to Sarnia, you see, for that job. And I guaranteed him, I promised him I'd make sure that fine was paid, that he could get to this job. And then he told me he would be calling me the next day. Now the next day is the 24th, Tuesday. Michael paid the fine at 2:57 p.m. He was told that the Remand Center would have it in half an hour, and Danny would be released sometime after that. We heard nothing. I was trying to message Danny, thinking that he got released and he just didn't contact me. He never phoned from the remand like he was supposed to. Then the next morning, I made a call to the remand, and the first thing I was told is that they legally couldn't tell me anything. So I phoned back. The woman told me I could, she gave me the phone number to the area in the remand that Danny was, which was the isolation ward or section, whatever. And it was isolation because of COVID. So I phoned, and I ended up being told that Danny refused to wear a mask when they were releasing him about midnight. He got confrontational, took 4 men to restrain him, and then the medic came and gave him a sedative called, what is it called again?
Midazolam.
And shortly after that, they found him unconscious on the floor. The medic came, started doing CPR, the ambulance was called, and from the time that the ambulance was called to when they got to the hospital, all I know is I was told that Danny went 21 minutes without oxygen. And so I phoned the hospital. I talked to the nurse. She said she'd have the doctor call back about 12 o'clock Ontario time. He phoned me back and then told me that, first of all, he told me he was talking to the doctor, the ICU doctor that was on shift when Danny came in.
Mm-hmm.
They get a lot of they get a lot of people in from the remand, but they've never seen anything like Danny.
Mm-hmm.
And then he proceeded to tell me that he was 21 minutes without oxygen, brought up that Danny was found in cardiac arrest, and they gave him this medication. And the way that the doctor put it again the next day, like every time he brought up cardiac arrest, he brought up this sedative.
Mm-hmm.
So we think that was probably the cause of what led to the cardiac arrest.
Do you believe the official story?
No, I don't. No, I don't. Not one bit. Because one reason is, why didn't Danny call me back on Tuesday? If the fine was paid, if they got the money at 3:30, why did it take till midnight? You know?
Mm-hmm.
But no, I don't, because everybody that I've talked to that knew Danny in Edmonton, worked with Danny, drove to work with Danny, said that he had no problem wearing the mask. He knew he had to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that he was beaten at 12 midnight either.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was much earlier. Because like I said, I know he would have phoned, and he didn't phone. So what happened that he couldn't make that phone call?
Mm-hmm.
When Danny was being released, why would he have to wear a mask to go outside if nobody else is out there?
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't make sense. He's now a free man, and he's going to start a fight because of something he's been doing for, well, at least a year or more.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that just does not add up. Plus, like I said, he didn't phone me back on that Tuesday, and I know that he would have.
Mm-hmm.
If he could have, he would have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think something happened.
Or September 7th is the last time I talked to him.
Mm-hmm.
I called him up to tell him that Danny died, and that he never once made a phone call to me.
Mm-hmm.
I got one phone call from another detective. He was the guy that was saying that he's overseeing everybody, and he's the one, he called me up to tell me that the case isn't criminal. I haven't got a phone call from the Solicitor General. I haven't got a phone call from nobody about nothing. Nobody's making any phone calls about this. I've called the fatality board. They said that they're waiting on the file to get to their desk. So I've called everybody else to see what's going on and see, like, yo, let's get this pushed through. Let's get this moving. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why is time wasting? Let's get it going. How much longer, you know? If this guy says that the case isn't criminal and he's done his investigation, and then the next person, if he can do it in a week, the next person can do it in a week.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's got to be 4 investigations, by now, all of it should be done. I don't understand why it's taking so long.
And we're told it could take 4 to 5 years before we get answers.
And then in the meantime, like, how long, like, what's going on over there? How come nobody's in trouble?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, a man died,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody's in trouble.
Yeah. And who knows if they have security footage?
Oh,
body cam?
the detective told me that he's got 24 different camera angles. I've asked him questions like, do we have footage of when Danny entered the building?
Mm-hmm.
Was he wearing a mask when he entered the building?
Mm-hmm.
And when he was escorted with the cops didn't have anything bad to say to him, right? Like, they let him use his phone.
Yeah.
While he was, like, he was allowed to have his phone while he was going to the remand center.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously he was cooperating when he was walking into the building.
Mm-hmm.
No.
But yeah, I've asked the detective all the questions that I could think of, and it's like, well, have we spoken to the cops yet?
Mm-hmm.
Right, the arresting officers? And he said, well, that's not part of the investigation. I'm like, well, why can't we make it part of the investigation? If he came into the building with a good attitude, why is he leaving the one with a bad attitude? Mm-hmm. Right? I showed up to the remand center on the Friday, and when I walked in the building, the guards inside, they were not wearing masks.
Mm-hmm.
So why was my brother forced to wear a mask, and why did he take a beating for it? Mm-hmm. Like, even the autopsy, we can't even know what the autopsy says. We saw a copy of it, and the autopsy said it's still under investigation. I don't know how many cases they get like this, but like you'd think that there'd be some kind of like, yo, we need to get this figured out. What the hell's going on? But no. And then like, it feels like the media was afraid to even go after it because they're afraid of the cops as well, getting sued, of the legal teams and all this other shit. And it's ridiculous. Then we find out from the lawyer that the cap on a wrongful death case in Alberta is 90 grand. 90K, it's gone, you know what I mean? 90K isn't worth a father. And it's just like, who makes that decision to make a cap at 90 grand?
In fact, you're lucky if you get enough money to pay.
That's if we win the case.
That's what it really boils down. And that's what I'm saying. The system is working for them, but not us. Why does it take 4 to 5 years, to investigate?
How can the family be left in the dark?
For 5 years, yeah.
Like it's just,
they want
it's
to wear
crazy.
you down. They want to wear you down. And they wear you down, you run out of money, and you're forced to stop.
Whereas they will never run out of money.
No.
Yeah, I seen this article saying that Edmonton in the last 5 years has only paid out $178,000 in settlements, but they've spent more money on lawyer fees to fight those.
And that was for a number of people. That's not for one or two. That was for a number. And that's what I'm saying. You're lucky if you get lawyers' fees. We had to almost I didn't even have the $2,800.
Danny got brought into the hospital at 1 a.m. on a Wednesday, and on Friday the police weren't even notified yet. So by the time I notified the police, and it was 56 hours from the time that he arrived to the jail or to the hospital to the time that the police were notified. So that's 56 hours that the guards had to come up with whatever the story they wanted with no audio. And now, without the footage, I can't even try to see what I would say Danny would, because I know him, right? How do you go up against the system? They kill your brother, they have all the evidence, they make stacks of paperwork for you to do and tell you to sit there and wait while they decide what they want to do, and they're going to appoint a lawyer. Another thing is like this fatality inquiry, there's going to be a room, and then at that point, whenever that is, it could be 2 years from now, that they will bring us to the room and show us the footage. They won't give us the footage, they'll show it to us in a courtroom with all the other investigators, with the judge and an appointed lawyer, so that they can decide what they want to do about this in the future to prevent this from happening. That's what we have to wait 2 years for. We have to wait for them to decide how they can prevent this from happening in the future, and then we can go about seeing what's going to happen about whoever did this to him. So these guys are at work kicking the shit out of somebody else right now.
I'm only going by what little we've been told, right? That his death in itself, it might not be criminal because, the medic most likely didn't give the sedative with intent to kill. Where was intent, though, was the beating. His face was a mess. He has a fracture over his left eye. He's got some sort of mark here that it's not like bruising, it's more like carpet burn. So that's what makes me think he was laying face down in the cell.
Then he was left alone. They drugged him and left him alone.
Plus his knee was bruised. But the one thing, though, is that I don't understand why they're saying Danny got confrontational. I looked at his hands. He's left-handed, right? So he had the intravenous in. That was the only place where it was bruised. There was no bruises anywhere else. If he was punching hard or hitting bars or whatever, there was no marks on his hands. He's got the pictures to prove it. So how confrontational could he have been? Maybe his death wasn't criminal intent, but the beating was. If I beat you or anybody else, I would be in jail right now for what they did to Danny. And yet most likely they're still going to work, doing the same thing. Not only that, there was correctional officers on the ICU floor the day Danny died. And I know they did not talk to anybody about Danny. So why were they there?
The detective never came to the hospital once to look at him either. Like, I don't know. To me, I feel like he should have showed up and seen what he was looking at. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't even ask me for if there was pictures. He didn't ask me for anything. Constantly make the same phone calls and getting the same answers, and it's just like you just give up on it because there's, you know what I mean? How can you force them to do anything? They don't want to.
It wasn't over a mask. It wasn't. Something else took place before that. And I know Danny, when I was talking to him, he was whispering, like talking low, told me that the guard was there. And I haven't heard Danny whisper to me since.
What the fuck, please?
The last time he whispered to me, he was a kid. I mean, literally a kid. Like 16 years old at the most. I would say even younger than that. So why was he whispering to me when he phoned, right? I thought he was anxious because of the job, and now I'm thinking that he sounded more anxious because of what was maybe happening then already. But I don't care who you are, what you did to get in there. You don't deserve to be dead. You don't deserve to be. I've got this vision of my son laying on the floor, being beaten, like kicked in the head. And now he's gone. You know? And if he was given that sedative, did the medic sit with him for a while to make sure everything was okay? Probably not, you know? And I know that when Dan was on the ventilator.
Yeah, like that right there is like criminal. Like criminal negligence or whatever it is, like how does the guy just die? And then like the footage has been passed on to like, so the Remand Center has it, the detective has it, and the organization that oversees all the correctional facilities in Alberta, they have it as well. And now I'm sure the Solicitor General has it. So, and then it's going to get passed on to somebody else. So there's people that it's getting passed around. Why are they allowed to know about it? Like, and we're not.
Everybody else can know but us. The ones that should know are the last to know.
His tickets were paid. He should have been released. Why did it take 8 hours, 9 hours, however long it was to even get him to the point where he was so, like, it was midnight. Like, why did it take that long? And I know Danny would have been, like, relentless, saying, like, yo, can you guys help me out? Like, I need to get out of here. I start a job. I need to get there, right? The tickets are paid. It's frustrating.
Again, they have it set up where it works for them, but it doesn't work for us. But to deal with this every day for 5 years, like just to get an answer, that's why so many people give up. You know, like you.
It's emotionally difficult. They make it financially difficult.
Yeah, everything is working against you. But everything is working for them. You know, there's not one break for us. And
to me, he died in that cell because the paramedics came and got his heart pumping. And then he got to the hospital and he was on life support with the ventilator that was helping him breathe. Once the ventilator came out, he breathed on his own for a few minutes and then he passed away.
We don't have capital punishment in Canada, and we ought not to tolerate extrajudicial punishment. This incident only further shows how much the government cares about human life. A man died but nobody is in trouble. There's video evidence, but nobody's allowed to see it. For Rebel News, I'm Moka Bezirgan. We will follow up with the story as it develops. We did submit an access to information request about 3 weeks ago, but we did not receive an answer within the promised time limit. This kind of process takes a long time, so we have no choice but to wait. But in the meanwhile, if you would like to support our independent journalism, please go to rebelfieldsreports.com and make a donation. Thank you.